are you today? I know it's been a while and I hope you are all set for this lesson. Because today we are going to do something different. Why we'll be doing it will become clear later on. Now, who among you are familiar with It Bulagas Bawal Judgmental? That's great, because today we are going to play this game, but with a twist. You are all going to be our guest judges, and all you need to do is to make the right choice. You will have 7 choices, and from these choices, you have to select whom you think answers the question. There will be 2 rounds of questions with 2 different sets of choices, alright? That's the twist. Just a disclaimer, this is a work of fiction. Names and characters are products of the author's imagination, my imagination, or are used fictitiously. So any resemblance to actual locales or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. Are you ready? Let's get it started. First, let us meet your choices. Contestant number 1, Fahad. 2, James. 3, Stan. 4, Jenny. 5, Kevin. 6, Patrick. And 7, Cindy. The question is, who do you think among them are successful business owners? There are 2 correct answers. So, who among them do you think are 2 business owners? The answers are already pre-selected. But I will give you a few seconds to think about it and make a guess. Alright, let's see. The correct answers are Kevin and Cindy. Did you get it correctly? Great. So this time, let us meet our next set of guests. Contestant number 1, Carol. 2, Glenn. 3, Clive. 4, Cindy. 5, Sid. 6, Mia. And 7, Noah. The question is, who among them do you think are campus leaders? Again, there are 2 correct answers. Who do you think among our guests are campus leaders or school leaders? I'll give you a few seconds to think of your answer. Okay, let's see. Our campus leaders are Carol and Mia. Congratulations to those who made the correct match. Great guess, everyone. Now, here are some questions that we need to ponder on. First, how did you make your choice? What do you think influenced your decisions? What characteristics of the people in the photos did you notice first? Okay, since we don't have much information about these people, we don't know them personally, so we made our judgment based on the things that we can observe. And right now, what we can observe is mostly how they look like. Sometimes we make decisions simply because it feels right. We call it a hunch, an intuition, or an instinct. It's our gut feel. Next, outside this game, do you think it's wrong to judge people with such little information? Do you think people often judge people like this in our everyday life? Despite our best efforts, we all judge others. It might be over some small things like what they post in social media or their choice of music, or it might be over bigger issues, such as a person who behaves selfishly or hurts our feelings. In some situations, judgments do need to be made, such as deciding who will be our friends, which politician to vote for, or whether an outfit looks good on you. Without this ability to evaluate and make choices, how would you make any decisions or understand right from wrong? So basically, we judge all the time. However, what could be the consequences of prejudging people? Just like anything else, judging others has good and bad sides. When you make choices based on observing and evaluating other people, you are using an important skill. But when you judge people from a negative perspective or without knowing all the facts, judgment is likely to be harmful to the both of you. They can get in the way of fixing problems, hurt other people's feelings when you don't need or mean to, and they can harm your own self-esteem and happiness. I'm sure you have heard the expression, don't judge a book by its cover, right? What does it mean? Yes, it means that you shouldn't make a judgment about someone or something, be it a book or otherwise, based solely on their or its outward appearance. However, as I've said, we as human beings often use labels or categories to describe others. Categorizing things or people is a natural human inclination. However, people often make assumptions about groups of people they don't even know, and that may have serious effects. Today, we're going to explore the concepts of bias and prejudice. We'll talk about its definition and provide examples so that we can differentiate these two terms. All right? So, let's begin. Now, let's start with bias. Who among you are K-pop fans? What does it mean when you say, oh, he's my bias, or she's my ultimate bias? What does bias means? Bias in K-pop is basically someone's most favorite member of an idol group, right? So for example, if someone asks you, who is your bias? They're basically asking who your favorite K-pop idol is of all time. In other words, a bias is an inclination or a preference. The word bias as used in K-pop is derived from the original way the word is used, to have a bias towards someone. Of course, in this context, it is okay to have bias, but in other aspects, not so much. Now, some biases are positive and helpful, like choosing to only eat foods that are considered healthy, or staying away from someone who has knowingly caused harm. But some biases can cloud your judgment and may have negative consequences. A bias is a tendency to present or possess a partial viewpoint. It's a tendency to lean in a certain direction, either in favor of or against something. So it can go two ways. You may lean favorably towards something or think positively of it when used with the preposition toward. Bias toward. On the other hand, these may also lean negatively against something or thinking poorly of it when used with the preposition against. Bias against. For example, if someone is biased about women, they can take two different approaches. If they're biased toward women, okay, I use the preposition toward, meaning I'm thinking positively of women, okay, and I am the owner of my own company. My tendency is to hire only women because I feel they make better employees. Remember, I am biased toward women. But for instance, still I'm the owner of my own company, but I am biased against women. So I'm thinking negatively of women. My tendency is to hire a man over a more qualified female candidate. So just remember, if we use toward, that's thinking positively of someone or something. If it's against, then you are thinking negatively of it. Now, a bias can lead to prejudice. A prejudice is an unjustified or incorrect attitude, usually negative, towards an individual based solely on the individual's membership of a social group. For example, a person may hold prejudiced views towards a certain race, that's why we call them races, or gender, which sometimes we use the term sexist. So basically, a prejudice is an opinion formed before getting to know relevant facts of a case or situation. For example, prejudices against young people suggest that they are indifferent and reckless. These can be used to underestimate or ignore them. So people usually think that if you're younger, then you don't know much about anything, and they tend to underestimate or ignore them. So this is a form of prejudice. This is an overgeneralization. Of course, young people can make wise decisions and contribute in addressing societal issues. If there is a prejudice against young people, there is also a prejudice against older people, with the notion that older people are weak, and it may be used to deny them employment or abuse their rights. And this is a form of prejudice because, of course, old age isn't a reason to deny old people their rights and ignore their capabilities. So again, a bias is a partial viewpoint demonstrated either when in favor or against something or someone, generally considered unfair. A prejudice is a preconceived opinion or assumption made regarding someone or something without an actual experience or enough facts as basis. When prejudice occurs, stereotyping, discrimination, and bullying may also result. So prejudice is an attitude that can trigger abusive actions. That is why it is very important to be mindful of our own prejudice and take proactive steps to counter it. Okay, so let's practice differentiating bias from prejudice, alright? I have here some situations or statements, and let us all identify if it's considered a form of bias or prejudice. Number 1, Asians are smart. They can't be bad at math. They should get good grades. This is a form of, correct. This is a form of bias. It's a bias towards Asian. Okay. Although this is thinking positively about Asians, this could also put a lot of pressure to Asian students. Number 2, a manager refused to give specific tasks to workers he considered old because he thinks older people can handle that work. This situation is an example of, that is correct, prejudice. How about number 3? Mrs. Santos preaches people because she believes that her beliefs and practices are superior to any other religion. This is an example of bias. Number 4, a company hires only women because they feel that they make better employees. This is an example of, that's correct, it's an example of bias. How about number 5? A same-sex couple wanted to order a cake for their wedding day. However, the baker did not accept their order and refused to bake their cake. This is an example of, correct, it's prejudice. Number 6, Diane won the pageant because one of the judges is her mother. This is an example of, perfect, it's bias. How about number 7? A salesperson for a computer company thinks his or her company makes the best computers in the world. The salesperson shows, that's correct, B, bias. Number 8, some people are not served in a restaurant or a retail store because of their color of skin or race. This is an example of, okay, that's correct, it's prejudice. Number 9, Aaron is often teased and bullied because he's gay. This is an example of, correct, prejudice. And lastly, number 10, Jason didn't pass the job screening because he has many tattoos. This is an example of bias. Congratulations! Alright, so that is all for today. I hope I was able to help you in differentiating bias from prejudice. Hopefully next time we can talk more about the different types of biases, stereotyping, and of course how it all leads to discrimination. Remember, people will sometimes put each other in boxes and have biases toward one another because of what they look like or where they come from or who they are. But ultimately, it's up to us to decide who we are. Learning is the antidote for fear, bias, and prejudice. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.